Come on.
Oh my God!
What happened? What's going on? What's going on?
We heard a bang. We heard a bang. And she told me to get out. And then I heard screaming. So I came back and she was on the ground.
It's every parent's dream to see their child succeed in school and go off to college on a scholarship. For the Powell family, this dream turned into a nightmare when a phone call revealed the secrets their daughter had been hiding, turning their peaceful family home into a bloodbath. Brenda K. Powell had lived in the picturesque city of Akron, Ohio, peacefully since her teens. After graduating from the University of Akron, she worked as a child life specialist in the Hematology Oncology unit at the local children's hospital for the next 28 years. Described as devoted unconditionally to her work family and her own family, she founded the hospital's teen oncology program and always made time for her husband and children.
However, Brenda's life was tragically cut short by her own daughter, Sydney Powell. Sydney was described as a great student during her time at St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akron, where she played soccer and 1 year of lacrosse, and maintained excellent grades and a high GPA. When the time came for Sydney to go to college, she and her parents selected Mount Union University for its small campus and proximity to home. Sydney won a presidential scholarship, which eased the financial burden on her parents, and she started college in the fall of 2018. Sydney and Brenda's close relationship was well known among their circle. Brenda was Sydney's best friend, and the family trusted each other deeply. They even used the Life 360 app to track each other's whereabouts at all times. However, despite this closeness, the family unit began to fracture. Sydney had a history of success, excelling in high school and earning herself a scholarship to Mount Union University. Her parents had no reason to worry about her grades. Although Mount Union had an app for parents to review their child's progress, Sydney's parents rarely used it, respecting her privacy unless there was cause for concern. Sydney didn't share any details of her performance at school, not even during her summer breaks at home. In the summer of 2019, Sydney took a job with the Aon Rubber Ducks, the local baseball team, working in the kid zone. She returned to campus in the fall without mentioning any troubles she may have been facing. Similarly, during the winter break, Sydney seemed relaxed and happy, spending cozy holidays at home as if everything was fine.
However, in January 2020, when Sydney returned to Mount Union, there was a problem. In December 2019, she had become unenrolled from the fall semester after failing 3 out of her 4 classes. Consequently, Sydney received a written notice of expulsion. This letter, sent via certified mail, was addressed specifically to Sydney, informing her of her suspension and providing information on how to appeal or address the situation.
Yes.
Okay, what is that document?
This would be the letter indicating that Sydney was suspended.
Okay, so that's a suspension letter. That's a letter that's sent to students?
Yes.
Okay. And that directs them on who to contact if they want to appeal or to address what's going on?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, who is that letter specifically to?
Despite being suspended from Mount Union University, Sydney continued to maintain the illusion of normalcy when she returned to campus in January. She even kept up appearances with her roommate, Lauren Curry, who was also her best friend from high school.
And you mentioned that once a student is suspended, they wouldn't be allowed back into the dorms. Can you explain the process of who's allowed in the dorms and who's allowed to use Mount Union's facilities as a student?
So to live on campus, you have to be enrolled as a full-time student.
And part of that suspension, that student would lose access to all of those availabilities.
Yes.
Okay.
However, in late February, Sydney informed Lauren that she would be leaving for a while to figure things out. In reality, Sydney had been asked to leave. College administrators had personally informed her that she had to move out of her dorm and her keycard access would be terminated. When Miss Gaffney, an administrator, met Sydney, she initially denied being suspended, insisting that she was still a student. However, when confronted with the suspension letter she had signed for, Sydney admitted to knowing about it but hoped to resolve the situation. When administrators offered to call her parents to explain, Sydney was visibly distressed, indicating that she had already informed them. She was adamant about not wanting the college to directly contact her parents about her academic failure. Sydney went to great lengths to maintain the illusion, even paying for hotel rooms in cash to hide her eviction from her dorm. Despite her efforts, there were moments of suspicion from her parents. Brenda, her mother, once texted Sydney, expressing a feeling that she was being scammed. Sydney responded defensively, claiming that her grades were good. However, her father, Steve, encountered difficulties accessing the college's online portal, which raised further suspicions. Steve's inability to access the portal prompted him to question Sydney about any issues with Mount Union. This was the only clue the family had that something might be amiss with Sydney's academic situation. However, their suspicions were not enough to uncover the full extent of Sydney's deception before tragedy struck.
Have any information that something might be going on with Sydney in Mount Union?
The only thing that I knew is when I tried to sign on to the like their whatever app that they have on the website, it kept kicking me out.
And when you had difficulty logging onto that portal, what did you do?
I asked Sydney what was going on about it.
Okay, what did she say?
There was a mistake with Mount Union,
Okay,
and she'd look into it.
okay, and at that point you had no reason not to trust
Correct.
what she's telling you.
Correct.
On March 3, 2020, Steve received a call at work from Mount Union officials who urgently needed to speak with him.
I believe Mount Union called me. They called me, and the conversation was that Sydney wasn't enrolled anymore. And then I asked for how long, and they said, you have to ask her.
Okay. They're saying you have to ask her because they can't give you any more information, right?
That was my assumption.
Steve checked the Life 360 app and saw that Sydney was at home, which he found unusual for that time of day. He might have received a notification about her arrival, prompting him to leave work and confront her.
What prompted you to go home, to leave work and go home?
Because I saw on the app she was home, which I thought was a little bit early. The
Okay.
360 life.
The 360 app showed that she was home?
Yes.
If someone on that app comes home, do you get like a little buzz or notification on your phone?
If it's set up, you can.
Okay. So did you just happen to see that on the 360 app, or did it give you like a
I
notification?
might have got a notification. I don't recall.
Okay. So you get a notification that Sydney's at home, correct?
Yeah.
Interestingly, Steve left his phone at work to prevent Sydney from knowing he was coming home. He didn't want her to see his location change on the Life 360 app and potentially avoid a confrontation. He arrived home around 11:30 a.m., prepared to address the situation with Sydney directly. Steve found Sydney alone at home, where she explained that she was facing some challenges at college, but insisted that she was still enrolled and attending some classes with her friend and roommate Lauren. Steve responded to her disclosure with understanding, assuring her that they would navigate through the semester together. He suggested that if she needed to take the summer off, they would work through it.
Yeah, I don't remember the details, but I remember she said she was still going to some of her classes with her friend Lauren.
You remember telling her that, you can't run away from your problems, you have to face them.
I said we'd go through, let's get through this semester, and if you needed to take the summer off or we would work through it. I remember she said, all her friends have their shit together and she doesn't, and I told her, no, that's not true.
She said she didn't. Sydney said, I don't have my shit together, but my friends do.
Yeah, she didn't know what she wanted to do, it sounded like.
Sure.
Sydney confessed that she felt lost and unsure about her future, which left her afraid of disappointing her family. Recognizing Sydney's distress, Steve suggested they call Brenda, who was at work at the Children's Hospital, to discuss the situation further. Brenda decided to come home to talk to Sydney, while Steve made the fateful decision to leave before Brenda arrived. Brenda, known for her emotional sensitivity and ability to de-escalate highly charged situations, seemed like the right person to handle Sydney's sudden crisis. For the next hour, Brenda and Steve kept in touch via text messages. At 12:41, Steve sent Brenda a text message asking what she discussed with Sydney. However, Brenda never responded. Instead, she left a message with the administrative office at Mount Union requesting to discuss Sydney's situation. When college administrators Michelle Gaffney and John Fraser returned Brenda's call, Brenda answered the phone.
Dean Fraser was sitting at his desk, and I was sitting next to it. He dialed. The phone was answered, and Mrs. Powell answered.
You say Mrs. Powell, is that Brenda who answered?
Brenda answered, yes.
Okay. And what did you tell Brenda at that time?
So Dean Fraser was speaking and simply said, Brenda, this is Dean Fraser. I'm sitting here with Michelle Gaffney, our associate dean of students. We're returning your call, and that's about as far as we got.
Did Brenda respond to that introduction at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What did she say?
I think he asked, "Is this Brenda Powell?"
Oh, okay.
And she said yes, and then he identified himself.
Okay. And Miss Gaffney, what happened next?
There was a very large or a very loud sort of thud sound, like a pounding or a thud, accompanied by a pretty loud scream, and the scream might have actually been first, and then the thud.
Okay.
As I think about it, and then there was sort of an expulsion. The other sound that I heard at that same time, or right after, was sort of an expulsion of air, like the air was knocked out of somebody.
Okay.
I'd always heard that expression of the air being knocked, having the wind knocked out of you, but I didn't. That's actually what it sounded like. And then several more repeated thuds. I don't know how to describe the sound.
No, and that's okay. And you and Mr. Fraser could hear this from the other end of the phone.
From the other, it was on speakerphone, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear any communication during these thuds?
Just the screaming, and so we were both talking into the phone, saying, what's happening? Are you okay? Do you need help? What's going on?
Yeah. Can you describe your mindset at this time?
I very definitely felt like someone was being attacked.
Now, Ms. Gaffney, did you recognize that voice on the line?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that Brenda Powell?
It was not Brenda.
Who did you recognize that voice to be?
I was sure it was Sydney. Both Dean Fraser and I looked at each other and sort of shook our heads at each other and said, "That's not Brenda." And he then said, "I don't, Sydney. I think this is you. This is not Brenda."
And what happened next?
The phone went dead.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, what did you do next?
We called the Akron police. By that point, I had the phone number up and the address, and so we called the Akron police and indicated we felt there was some sort of situation at this house and that they needed to send someone right away.
They were on the phone, and there was a lot of screaming going on, so he couldn't really say if it was like a physical fight, but just heard like a lot of yelling and screaming going on, and then he tried calling back twice, and there was no callback.
In a single moment, a peaceful family home had become the scene of a crime. Impersonating her mother was not Sydney's only attempt at covering up what had happened. After the disastrous phone call, she set herself to staging the crime scene. She broke a window to make it look as though there had been a break-in, which would align with the story she would go on to tell the police, that there had been a break-in and her mother had told her to flee the house. But this scene was clearly staged. There was blood on the outside of the door near the broken window, suggesting it must have been broken only after the crime had been committed. After murdering her mother, she coldly and callously took steps to cover up her own guilt. At 12:51, Steve Powell received a call from a detective friend who had heard that police units were being dispatched to the Powell home. Steve immediately phoned his house and spoke to Sydney, who became hysterical when she heard that police were on their way and repeated the break-in story. Steve could only wait helplessly at work as his family life broke apart at home. The police initially found Sydney hysterical. This hysteria soon evaporated, however, and she became catatonic, lying on the ground in the fetal position as the enormity of what she had done began to sink in. There was a cast iron skillet on the floor in the master bedroom alongside a bloodied steak knife. These implements of an ordinary domestic household, no doubt used by Brenda herself to cook family meals, had been weaponized against her. As the police examined the scene, the series of events only glimpsed by Steve and the college administrators over the phone became horribly clear. The forensic pathologists concluded that Brenda Powell had died as a result of multiple blunt and sharp force injuries. Sydney had hit her mother multiple times over the head with the heavy cast iron skillet. She then fetched a steak knife and, in a frenzy, stabbed her mother repeatedly in the neck at least 23 times. Cuts and bruising to Brenda's face, arms and hands suggest that she had attempted to defend herself from Sydney, her beloved daughter whose academic failures and emotional turmoil had until now been kept a secret. The revelation of this secret led to Sydney's eruption and Brenda's tragic death. No one denies that Sydney killed her mother. At trial, however, her attorneys contended that the attack had occurred in the middle of a psychotic break, meaning she could not comprehend that her actions were wrong. As evidence, they pointed to her catatonic state. In Sydney's efforts to conceal her own academic failures and her paranoid fear of disappointing her parents, Sydney only derailed her life further and caused an unimaginable tragedy that ripped her family apart. The story of Brenda Powell's tragic death at the hands of her daughter Sydney is a stark reminder of how secrets and denial can lead to devastating consequences. Sydney's fate was determined by a jury on September 20th, 2023, when she was found guilty on all accounts: purposeful murder, felony murder, assault, and tampering with evidence. She was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Despite her claims of mental illness and memory loss during the attack, the court ultimately deemed her actions as intentional and sentenced her accordingly.
Ms. Powell, is there anything you want to say to me at this time? Okay.
I have advised Ms. Powell that given the nature of her appeal, she should not make a statement today.
And I understand that, but I have to give her the opportunity to do so. All right. Thank you very much. First of all, to the victims, to the family and friends, I am terribly sorry for your loss here. I cannot imagine what you have been through. I have received and read all of the letters that have been sent to me. I have considered the evidence that was brought into evidence at the trial, the statements of counsel, and all of the information that is before me at this time. I do find that counts 2 and 3 merge with count 1 for purposes of sentencing in this matter. Based upon the facts and circumstances of this case and in consideration of the relevant sentencing factors, including seriousness and recidivism, and applying the minimum sanction that the court has determined will protect the public and punish the offender without imposing an unnecessary burden on state and local resources, the court imposes the following sentence. Account 1, ma'am, I sentence you to an indefinite sentence of 15 years to pay in the Ohio Department of Corrections. On count 4 of the indictment, I sentence you to 3 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. Those 2 sentences to be run concurrent with and not consecutive to each other. Ma'am, please understand that on count 4 of the indictment, you may be subject to a period of post-release control upon your release. And if you violate that post-release control, the Adult Parole Authority is authorized to return you to prison for up to 9 months for any single violation and up to 50% of your prison sentence for all violations. Please also understand that if you're placed on post-release control and you are convicted of a new felony, in addition to being punished for that offense, the judge could add an additional consecutive 1-year period of time in prison, whichever is greater as a maximum. Ma'am, understand that you have a right to appeal this decision, and that notice of appeal must be filed within 30 days of the sentencing judgment entry. Your attorney has indicated to me that you are without funds to hire an attorney to represent you for appeal. Is that correct? And you wish for me to appoint counsel to represent you? All right. I will do that, and we will try and get that done before you leave the Summit County Jail. Ma'am, I will not fine you. I will not assess you court costs in this matter. Counsel, is there anything that I have forgotten? Good luck to you, Ms. Powell. Thank you. We're adjourned.
The courtroom proceedings provided a glimpse into the shattered lives of both the Powell family and those affected by Brenda's senseless death. Sydney's attempt to conceal her actions only compounded the tragedy, leaving a scar that will never fully heal for those involved. As we reflect on this tragic story, we're reminded of the importance of seeking help and facing reality, even when it's difficult. Denial and secrecy only lead to further pain and suffering, as evidenced by the devastating consequences in this case. Do you believe Sydney's fate was just? Share your thoughts in the comments below, where we gather evidence from reliable sources to bring you the truth about true crime. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our uploads. Until next time, stay safe and take care. We'll see you soon on Mysterious Oracle.